welcome back to another edition of the Blue Review. This is I'm already losing tracks of my days, a Wednesday edition.
Yes, it is.
It's been a wonderful morning already. Marcus Grant, thank you for joining us today. I know you are just insanely busy with the draft season and all that good stuff coming up. So I just wanted to say thank you for joining us. And,
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah.
It's a nice break from NFL draft season, right? I mean, I was a quick aside. Like at this point in NFL draft season, we've sort of reached the silly part of it where like there's nothing else really to talk about. So people are coming up with weird takes. Like yesterday's big thing was some anonymous scout basically said that, and it said it in a negative way, that, you know, Caleb Williams would be sort of like having Prince at quarterback, and everybody's like, wait, that's great. Like
Prince is the GOAT.
Prince was like super cool and like amazing at what he did. Like if that's the case, then I want Caleb Williams. Like this is where we are right now. So yeah.
Who do you have my Steelers picking?
You know, I don't know where they're going to go in the first round because they're kind of middle of the first round, aren't they?
Yeah, they have a weird. I mean, they're either going to trade up or trade down.
Yeah, I mean,
what's going on there?
There's a lot of wide receivers out there. There's thought they might take one of them, or maybe they focus defense. There are a lot of options, a lot of places they can go right now.
Yeah. Well, you know, on this Wednesday edition, of course, we want to get into the Dodgers game. The Dodgers were looking really good last night out in Washington. The bottom of the lineup decided to show up.
Yeah.
Ohtani hit an absolute piss missile. And the bullpen, I think, looked like what we want it to look like, you know?
Yeah, no, the bullpen looked good. I mean, yeah, there were some rocky parts to it, without a doubt, but they did not give up a run. I mean, I think that's sort of the thing. The bullpen had a bunch of scoreless innings. You know, Evan Phillips, a little bit of a white knuckler there in the ninth, aided by some questionable base running, but in the end, he put up a 0. He got the save. The Dodgers get the win. So I think there were, you know, it was not pretty. I think I saw somebody describe it as workmanlike, and I think that's probably the best way to describe it. I mean, they grinded it out. I mean, they were down 1-0 for a good long while, and then finally grinded it out. But as you mentioned, bottom part of the order got it done. I mean, they got a couple of RBIs out of the 7th spot. I think Kike drove in a run. They replaced him. He got pinch hit for by James Outman, who ended up driving in a run. I mean, Miguel Rojas had a couple of big hits, stole a base in the game. You know, and they got contributions where they needed them to. And then obviously, you know, you get a couple hits out of Freddie. You get the bomb, the absolute monster shot from Shohei. You know, so it was not like a cruising. It was not like Sunday, right, where they win 10-0 and everything looks great. But, you know, over the course of 162, you're going to have nights like this, and they figured out how to get it done. So kudos to them for that.
Yeah. And of course, real quick, before we get too deep into the breakdown of last night's game, I just want to remind everyone, the Blue Review here is presented by LAX, and our friends at Los Angeles International Airport are just changing the travel experience, reducing traffic, saving guest time. And if you want to know more, you can find it out at flylax.com/transforminglax. So, like you mentioned, we kind of touched everything there. Why don't we kind of start with Paxton? How did we feel about last night? He honestly didn't issue as many walks as he did the first few games. There were some shaky moments, but he did his job. He did what Dave Roberts asked of him.
I mean, I think that's the best way to describe it, right? He did what was asked of him. It was not, you know, super dominating, but he kind of battled through. I mean, high pitch count the first couple of innings. I think he had like 52 pitches through the first 2 innings and sort of struggled with his command, but he did the job. He kept the Nationals from scoring a whole lot. They got 1 run on him, which was sort of kind of a grinded out kind of run. I think they scored on a bunt base hit with runners on first and third, but he was able to do enough to keep the Dodgers close and then give them a chance to win at the end. That's kind of all you want. You know, I know I was talking about guys kind of going deep into games, but I think in this instance, they just needed him to get them through the start of the game and give them a chance to win, and he did that.
Yeah, and then you're looking outside of Paxton and what we saw from the rest of the rotation and the rest of the bullpen when they came in. Grove, kind of like I don't want to call it a bounce back performance, but he looked solid. And then the biggest one of the night that we have to get to on this show specifically, Greg's villain,
yeah, man,
Vesia. And you know what? Actually, Marcus, real quick before we get into that, I had something that we didn't really set this up, just spur of the moment.
Okay.
Special guest joining us, Clinton Yates, live from where are we coming from, Clinton?
I'm out at breakfast right now in the town that I live in Marina. Some of you might recognize this just based on what it looks like. But I called in because my dad is a season ticket holder, Marcus,
Okay.
for Nationals Park. And he hit me up. He hit me up last night, and he hit me up this morning and was like, dude, that homer was the craziest thing I've pretty much ever seen. He saw it with his eyeballs and has
Wow.
not stopped talking about it since. And listen, my dad is a baseball guy. He's not as big of a baseball guy as I am or any of us are, but the man is a season ticket holder and he knows what he likes when he sees it. And one of the other things he talked about that I just want to continue to import upon Dodgers fans and baseball fans in general in Los Angeles is that we are seeing a cultural experience that we are not going to recreate. He said a bunch of the kids there, apparently of Japanese American descent, had their Ohtani jerseys on that were like special. They had first game certificates. Like it was a real experience for the people of the district. And I don't just mean baseball fans, you know what I'm saying? People
Mhm.
in general. And that's such a
Wow.
cool thing, I think, that we forget sometimes with Shohei is that this is something we'll never going to see in our lives ever again. And what I told him was, when I saw him for the first time with my eyeballs in a big setting in front of me, which happened to be at the All-Star game in Colorado, the man looks like he's chiseled out of stone. Just in case you don't actually know that. That's what he looks like. And it's just one of those things where I just want to remind folks, the Ohtani experience, and this is all, scandal aside, from a baseball standpoint, really is something that changes lives. And last night we got to see it from the bat. And, a lot of people had a good time down there on Half Street in the district where I'm from.
Yeah, no, I think that's key too, right? And I think you're right, Clinton. I don't think it's a thing we talk about a lot. I mean, we've been talking about it just from the strictly baseball side of things, and not necessarily from the cultural impact of things. But I mean, it's a thing where I've heard other stories that aren't necessarily straight baseball stories, talking to people, especially Japanese Americans or Asian Americans in Los Angeles, and talking about how much it means to them to have him in a Dodger uniform and what it is. And like I'll say this, I didn't live in Los Angeles, when Fernando hit. I think I was 4 years old, his rookie year. So I certainly didn't understand it. I would guess that's probably the only other thing, I guess in recent vintage, I guess I could say that had a similar impact was just the impact Fernando Mania had, I'm sure, in Los Angeles and probably nationally for Mexican Americans too. I think they might be sort of on par with one another. I think it's sort of cool to kind of acknowledge that part of it.
I think that's a really good comparison. And the only reason I'll add something to that is because I was at the game where Fernando's number was retired. And you could see that. It was palpable. The Dodgers did a great job with it in terms of how they handled the ceremony. They did an even better job with it in terms of how they handled what I'll just call the like the video they made about his highlights. The man threw a daggone no-hitter in gold-rimmed glasses. Like, what are we doing? That's insane. But, just in general, I think that is an apt comparison on a different level, sort of a more modernized 2020s version. But, yeah, it is a real thing that, I'm happy as a resident of Los Angeles at this stage of my life that I'm able to be a part of.
Yeah, 100%. And I also think another side note, it sort of speaks to the power of the Dodgers, the brand of the Dodgers, because technically Ohtani's been in the LA market for how many years now, but it feels different. Yes. It feels different now that he's wearing a Dodger uniform, because I think it sort of speaks to the fact that the Angels, look, they had two of the best players in the game on their roster, but we're still sort of an afterthought generally across baseball. Ohtani moves, 30 miles up the freeway, and it feels like a revolution, even though we sort of know who he is as a player for a while now.
Anyways, that's all I got, boys. Just wanted to let you know. Poppy Yates is really pumped about the Ohtani experience.
I was going to say, Poppy Yates going to be there today. I think it's another 3:45 game.
I think he might be there today. He doesn't typically do 2 games in a row necessarily. He doesn't do back-to-backs well. The man is a man of age. He's gotten lucky enough to grow old. So, we'll see. But he was there last night, and he was pumped about it. So.
Awesome,
well, I'm
man.
Glad he got to
good
see
job,
that
absolute good work.
Kiss missile. Thank you, CY.
Enjoy breakfast. That's it. Well, that was fun.
That was good. Yeah, you always love a random pop in by
cool
friends.
Little cameo.
And just what a great tidbit, the fact that his dad's out there and you're seeing the impact from somebody who has been a fan of baseball for so long, just seeing the impact of, not just culturally, but just young people in general, just wanting to see Shohei. And that was such a cool little tidbit. Glad we got to do that. So we were kind of talking about before we got into the whole Otani, the macro of Otani. We were getting into a bit of the micro in terms of the bottom half of the lineup. Um, Everybody kind of showed out yesterday. You mentioned
Mm-hmm.
some names. Miguel Rojas went 2 for 4 with an RBI. Kike, of course, had a nice little hit with an RBI. And even Teoscar, who's been struggling a little bit, was on base. So the things we were kind of harking on the last few days about, we just want to see you guys get on base. That happened last night. And do you see this moving forward as kind of like a spark?
I hope so. I mean, I hope this is just a little something to kind of get these guys going a little bit, right? I think the thing with Outman particularly, and we said that earlier in the year, is that he was hitting the ball pretty hard. He was putting it in play. He was just going through a lot of bad luck. And I think some of these balls now are starting to find holes, right? He's continuing to make fairly consistent contact. And now some of these things that were landing in gloves are hit, as the kids would say, touching grass. So I think that's positive. I think Andy Pages is sort of feeling his way a little bit. I love him, and I get frustrated by him because he is super aggressive at the plate. Like he is not. You really have to work hard to walk Andy Pages because he's going to go up there and he's going to get his hacks 100%. And so when he runs into one, it's really cool. I think Miguel Rojas has been a really nice piece when he plays. Granted, he's going to be a platoon guy, but at the bottom of the lineup, I think he's giving them just enough. In terms of, obviously defensively, we know what he is, but he's giving them just enough at the plate. It was cool to see him steal a base yesterday as well. So I do hope this is the start of things, right? Because we know the top 4 guys are going to hit. So if they can just start getting consistent contributions from 5 through 9, we keep saying it. This lineup is going to be really, really hard to deal with.
Yeah, the chat, shout out to Stone Steve Mason in the chat there. He loves Miggy Rowe, and he says Miguel Rojas should be playing way more often. So let's just kind of stick with Miggy. He's batting, I think it's 281. Yeah, 281 this season, 2 home runs, 5 RBIs, and a decent OPS at 824. We know the whole Dodgers are kind of giving Lux 150 at bats as like their timetable of how they want to see post injury. Miguel Rojas has shown us, obviously, he's just going to be a platoon guy. But do you trust him if he has to play a lot more this season? Let's say, upwards of 100 games.
I don't know that you get the offensive production out of him if he's playing that many games. And if you're okay with that, then sure, put him in there because, defense doesn't really take a day off. And so in that respect, he's going to be fine. And I've seen people, like I saw Doug McCain, I think yesterday on Twitter, suggesting that maybe the Dodgers move Mookie to second base full time and you start to see Rojas get a little bit more time at shortstop. I think he's a guy who's good as a platoon player. I don't know that he's going to give you what you want if if he gets 400 or 500 at bats in a season. But again, if everybody else around him is hitting, I think it's fine. I think at this point in the season, though, because Roberts is trying to sort of mix and match and find that magical combination, I think it's a little bit hard. But look, in the meantime, Chris Taylor's still, I know he got a hit on Friday, but he's still very much driving the struggle bus. Kike is, passenger seat in the struggle bus right now. So maybe that alone is enough to get Rojas on the field a little bit more. We'll see.
True. Just might be. And I mean, they're still dealing with, when it comes to that bottom end of the lineup, there's still a couple injuries here and there, and there's still names we haven't really seen, like Hayward.
I've seen Hayward in a while. Yeah.
yeah. So, we're still waiting on updates for that anyways. But looking at last night's game, we're kind of jumping back and forth between the bullpen, bottom end of the lineup. The way they won the game, how did you feel about that with Evan Phillips? I mean, he's been pretty solid all season, and then he has a little bit of a shaky start there, and some bad base running by Washington helps get the dub. Just what were your thoughts on that last?
Yeah, I mean, it was scary. It was definitely scary to watch. Like here it is. You felt like when Shohei hit the home run, you're like, all right, so that gives them one more insurance run. It's going to take a little bit more for the Nats to come back and tie or win this game. And then, next thing, and look, Phillips comes out, strikes out the first guy on 3 pitches. You're like, all right, well, here we go. Then a couple of walks, a hit, the bad base running aside, another walk, bases are loaded. And you're like, well, now all of a sudden, one swing of the bat and the Dodgers could lose this game. I just sort of chalked it up as it was just a rough outing. I'm not panicked one way or another. I'm not sitting here looking at, well, do we need to make a change in the closer spot? Evan Phillips just had a tough day, and it happens. I thought it was funny as he was warming up, or I think earlier in the game when Hudson was warming up, Steven Nelson on the broadcast referred to the bullpen trust tree, and how Evan Phillips sits at the top of the trust tree, and like Daniel Hudson sort of just below him. I don't think Evan Phillips has come off the top of the trust tree. The wind was blowing, it got a little bit wobbly up there, a few tremors, but I think he's going to be okay.
Yeah, no, that's a good analogy, the trust tree, because we've been really talking about that in essence this whole Blue Review. It's like the trust tree, and some are shaky, some aren't. And we've kind of mentioned some names here and there, but guys are looking decent and they're starting to find their own, find their rhythm. But the bullpen, like we say, is never going to be the same when it gets down to the end of the season or even in the middle of the season. And I kind of wanted to touch on something I was reading earlier this morning, which relates to this in a sense. Friedman, I think it was maybe yesterday. I don't know. The Athletic did a piece on just the top 10 offices, like front offices in the MLB.
Mm-hmm.
And with no surprise, Andrew Friedman and the Dodgers were number one. So I kind of wanted to just get your thoughts on, you've been a Dodger fan much longer than me, and you've been following the Dodgers longer than me. So since he's come in 2014, just how would you rate his performance? And do you agree that he is and they are the top front office?
I think they are. I think in terms of player of talent, recognition and player development, I think they've done a great job. I think, if you have a beef with them, I think sometimes baseball fans, especially longtime baseball fans, maybe get a little bit frustrated with the analytical side of things. And I think that just has to do with the fact that baseball historically has been slow to embrace change. But, things like when you get to the postseason and you see so many pitching changes and you see sort of this almost paint by numbers way of getting through games and counting out, right? I think so many of us who've watched baseball for years are like, hey man, this guy looks like he's mowing people down. Why not give him another turn through the lineup when that's not necessarily the way they operate? So I think if there's a criticism or a frustration, I should say, that's probably it. But in terms of identifying talent, obviously both at the major league level in terms of trades and free agency, but at the minor league level and being able to continue to stock that farm system, I think they've done an excellent job. And I think, when you talk about the farm system, it's in part, it's nice because you can have guys you can pull up right when you need to. You can find an Andy Pages. You can bring up a Landon Knack if you need some arms or something like that. But more importantly, it allows you to be in a position to continue to acquire talent at the major league level. So if you get to the trade deadline and you realize, hey, we need more bullpen help, or we need another left-handed bat or something like that, you have options to go and move guys and bring in that talent. Because the Dodgers right now, it's not about building, it's about finding those pieces to get you over the hump. And so I think they've done a great job. I will also add that it definitely helps when it feels like you have bottomless pockets. We can't ignore that part of it too. Like, they do have the money to go out and spend when they want to. That definitely helps. But I think Friedman's done a very good job of building this franchise.
Yeah. So as we kind of near the end here of this Blue Review episode, in terms of what Friedman has done this year and the stars he has signed, let's just kind of check in where we're at right now, because looking at the big three, they're nearing 100 at-bats. I think Ohtani might be leading with 99, and Mookie right there, like hovering at 98, and Freeman 90 or so. Looking in right now, Freeman's starting to find his, as I keep saying, finding his groove. He is Freddie Freeman, right, as we know Freddie Freeman right now. So looking at Shohei, batting .364 through 99 at-bats, and he has 36 hits and 11 doubles, and you just saw his home run, which I think tied Mookie for the lead on the team last night.
Yeah, tied Mookie, and puts him one back of Dave Roberts for
that's right,
all-time Dodger home runs by a Japanese-born player. So he's coming for you, Doc. He's coming for you.
The countdown, we got to watch it. And then you got Mookie, who obviously started off this season amazing. He's batting .347 right now with 34 hits of his own. And of course, he has the 6 RBIs, and I think he's leading the team still, maybe behind. I think he's tied with Teoscar, 19 RBIs, which is surprising that Teoscar is still leading the team with
Yeah.
alongside Mookie with 19 RBIs, just the way he was performing the last few games. And then Freddie, like I mentioned, finding his groove, looking better, almost back up to a 300 batting average with 27 hits, and then just he's obviously a double machine. So Shohei may be leading the team in doubles, but Freddie's just starting to catch up slowly but
That's
surely.
gonna be a fun race, I think, all year. We're watching these doubles race between those two guys. That's gonna be fun.
Yes. So, like you mentioned, Friedman knows what he's doing when it comes to talent and who he wants to buy, and he's absolutely nailed it this year. I know that we've had some people panicking, some Dodgers fans panicking about the start. They're 14-11 and they're still in first place. So, don't sound the alarms just yet.
Yeah, man. I just think, again, it's stepping back and realizing how long the season is. And, I know that when you follow this team, you follow any team really, really closely, you do tend to kind of get caught up in the day-to-day of it. And so, it feels magnified. And a team this good with this kind of expectations, people just expected them to come out and cruise and just run away with. Look, man, you can't win a division title in April. You can't. And so, I'm going to go out on a limb and say, you know what? They may go through another stretch at some point in this season where they lose a few games in a row or they lose a couple of series and some guys look bad. It's just going to happen over 6 months. So I think every now and then we need to just remind ourselves to pause, take a deep breath, and just look at the totality of this team and understand how good they are and what the end game is, and that is October.
That's right. And another thing, just have fun with it. This team is the most fun. There's no other way to put it. They're the most fun team to watch in baseball right now. Outside of some of those electric players who you can tune into, watch their highlights like the Ellie De La Cruzes, or, just looking at everyone. I mean, Mike Trout's having a good year too, and baseball is always better when Trout's healthy and having a good year. But this team is just by far the most exciting team in baseball. So just have fun with it. And, Marcus, you and I think we are going to do something tonight that is just that. We're going to have some fun with some Dodgers
food,
baseball, and food combined.
Yes, should be fun.
So,
looking forward to that.
So everyone in the chat, keep an eye out for that. The Dodgers do theme nights every year, and obviously they just celebrate culture. They do a whole bunch of theme nights, and I think it's May 7th. They're going to be doing the Mexican culture night. So in honor of that, Marcus and I are going to go try out some of LA's best Mexican food,
which is a tall order, by the way.
There's a lot of good Mexican food.
A lot of really good Mexican food in Los Angeles. So this is a tall order. But you know what? I'm down for the process of research for the, I'm down to try. In the name of science, that's all it is.
In the name of science, correct. Well, keep an eye out for that. Like I said, thank you for tuning in today. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, reacting to the game as well. Landon Knack is on the mound today. Let's see. I mean, he had a decent performance his first game, so I think he'll do just well against, Washington of all teams. So it's a good team to play for your second game. And that's that. I think we'll leave you with that. Thank you, Marcus.
Shout out to CY, by the way, Clinton Yates, for jumping in too, real quick.
Thank you very much, and also good luck with you tomorrow, draft day. I'm sure it's going to be very hectic.
Oh yeah.
So NFL fans, I know you're excited. I'm excited. We'll be back again tomorrow. Thank you very much. This has been a long outro. We'll catch you next time. Shout out LAX. Thank you.